All right, good morning guys. Bert Burger here, SUNOVA Surfboards. Today we're going to answer some questions about composite materials, right? So I get the question, right, why wood? And it's not for the looks, but it's definitely for performance, and it's also about durability. And looks is actually the last thing. So what I've just got a range of different materials in front of me, and I'm going to give you some examples of what different materials do, how they flex, how they spring back, and I think you'll sort of start to see the picture here. So look, I spoke before, we done a video on the parabolic rail, and I sort of was talking about a stringer and a PU and how a PU foam sort of flexes, but it has this reverberation that goes through it. And what the wood does is the stringer in the middle of the board, it's important because it makes the board spring back to its original position quickly. Now watch this. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got a plastic ruler. I'm just going to put it here, I'm going to bend it a bit, all right, let it go, and it's going to spring back. But you notice it springs back at a certain speed, and then it's got a little bit of reverberation. And then I'll do the steel ruler, similar thing, all right. Okay, so it springs back relatively quickly. Again, you see it's got that reverberation, right? Now we'll do a bit of foam, right? Same sort of thing. You see it springs back slower. It's just doesn't have as much guts, doesn't, you know, it's a bit floppier. Okay, now when we do the wood, and you'll watch it just spring back real quick. See how quick? Bang, straight away. Springs back, and notice there's no reverberation. It just springs back, bang, just instantly kicks back to its original position. So it's then ready to go again, because the last thing you want is you want to surf a board and it flexes, and then as you come out of the turn, it's warbling and reverberating, and then it's fucking up your next turn. All right, it's not going to seamlessly flow from turn to turn. So the beauty about wood is it's a composite material. It can bend incredibly far, and yet it springs back to its original position multiple times. And so look, if I was to get this steel ruler and I was to bend it and bend it and bend it, just like a coat hanger wire, eventually it's just going to break. It's going to fatigue in that spot. Whereas wood, I can bend it and bend it and bend it and bend it like it sits in the wild for 200 years, and the wind blows it around and doing, it's straight again. So wood is an incredible natural composite. So it has the ability to bend, spring back really quickly with a lot of force, and it's really the thing that gives you control in your board. And so now the other thing with timber, right, is different materials are going to come in different densities, and the density is also going to affect the flex. Now the beauty with balsa is it comes in a range of densities from 80 kilo a cubic meter all the way up to 250 kilo a cubic meter. So you get a lot of range as far as how much variety of different performance characteristics you can get from just this one wood alone, all right? And so as an example, if I was to say grab another board, all right, just grab one here behind me. So if I look at this board, you see balsa, right? You see a little bit of bamboo, but look, essentially on the bottom of this board, we have one density here, super light for cushioning, right? We have 3 different densities in the deck, hard stuff in the foot area, right? We put lighter, different density stuff in the nose, so the nose is easier to throw around. We have a different density again in the rail to make sure that you get the perfect amount of spring back. And then if I was to include the bamboo, so this particular board here, it has 6 different densities of timber, right? So it's engineered. Now, you go to other composite materials, yeah, you know, you get some variation in density, but you won't get that positive spring back and that lively feel. And so if you think about how important the wood is in a normal board, right, as far as it's really the bit that kind of makes it magic, it makes it happen, and it's just a little bit of wood down the middle. And here you've got an entire wooden board, and it's engineered in every aspect, in every position on the board. So wood, it's a natural composite. It has some amazing characteristics for performance. Okay, so really what happens is wood is a high performance composite material. And a lot of people don't give it credit because they think it's like old fashioned. So I'll give you a couple of stories. I remember there was a shop that I dealt with years ago in Western Australia. They were called Bonnie Surf and Ski. So originally they were like a water ski specialist in the 60s and 70s. In fact, my Uncle Ben was actually sponsored by them because my Uncle Ben was a professional water skier. He was a slalom skier. And in slalom skiing, the boat runs a straight course and the guy on the ski's got to go right out there around the buoy, swing back here this way. And so they put the ski right out there and the ski just flexes and then it has to spring them across the other side. And then they put it into a turn and then it springs them across here. So it turns out I'm working in this shop and the guy's explaining that all the grommets are coming in and they all want carbon fibre and they want Kevlar and they want all these different composite materials. And all the old competitive water skiers are like, nah, mate, you want wood. Wood's the real McCoy. Anyway, a few years later, I got to work with a guy called Mike Olsen. He was with Quicksilver. He was sort of like their head of R&D, product development, LibTech, new snowboards. And I got to do a little bit of R&D work with him because we're working on something similar at the same time with the LibTech waterboards. So anyway, Mike was explaining that it's the same in snowboards, that you've got these professional snowboarders and the outside of the board would have these like graphics and like carbon and different layers printed into a layer of plastic, but ultimately inside the board, it's just a wooden core, Polonia wood, this wood right here, 300 kilo cubic meter, and it's just the ultimate core material for a performance piece of equipment because as it flexes, when it springs back instantly and then the rider's ready to take on the next challenge and the next curve and the next move or whatever. So that's basically it. Wood is performance, it's not just for looks. Now, even if you look at that, you can kind of go, well, is that actually good looking? I'm not sure. You know, so in other words, this arrangement here, it's been chosen for its engineering principles and its performance principles, not so much the look. So really that's what the wood's about. Now the other thing with balsa too is another good point, is that we can machine it to any thickness. So we've got a good range of density and we've got a range of thicknesses we can machine it to make sure that it does what we want it to do in various parts of the board. So that's a little bit of a rundown on why wood.